Save me a piece of that corn. Guten Morgen. Sprechen Sie root beer? So today on the welcome to another edition of the little podcast on the Prairie. And one thing we like to do is shout out fun Midwest products that we find along the way. And one thing that we found recently is this Sprechen brand. They do root beer, lemonade, all kinds of soda pops. It's a brewing company, so they do beers.
This lemonade is so good. Oh, you'll die if you drink it. It's so good.
Let's give her a try here. You want to take the first sip?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we just tried this for the first time the other day, and we just both were in love with it. This
so
is
good.
a sparkling blueberry craft lemonade, and they have all kinds of different flavors. But it's fantastic. Anyway, just wanted to give those a shout out. Those come from the great state of Wisconsin. Also, where our good friend Jan Tanis comes from. So anyway, if you have the opportunity, they sell these at Menards and all over the place out here. I don't know. Hopefully they'll get them out to the West Coast and East Coast at some point. I'm not sure if they do already.
So yummy.
But yeah, and one of the best root beers I've ever had. All right, so what are we going to talk about today?
We're going to talk about the death of the Midwest. We're going to talk about why they have all these charming brick building downtowns that are completely dying off in the little towns out here in the Midwest. You go through tons of these small towns, and they're like semi-ghost towns.
We're talking about typically towns of like 1,500 to 1,000 people or less.
Right. But you can just see like it once was a thriving community, and so we wondered what gives. So we're not really strangers to small towns dying out, and in fact they die out for different reasons all around the country. And for us coming from the Pacific Northwest, it was based in transportation. And we had run a little B&B in Gardner, Oregon, and nowadays it's like a population of 2. It's like so small. But back in the day, it was the major seaport on the Oregon coast. And we had run a bed and breakfast there that we had bought from a lady named Dixie. And we always seemed to buy houses from ladies named Dixie. And she had run the bed and breakfast for quite some time. And going through her papers that she left like all these old notes from guests and all this old paraphernalia from her community growth group. They were part of a historical society, and she put on like a big 100-year celebration of Gardner and made up all these t-shirts that she had overflow, and she left a whole bunch of them for us to use. And looking at what she had done, it really gave me the bug for wanting to revive, something that was once so great, which is now kind of decimated. And I looked into the town and saw that it had this big old boardwalk, that it was just an incredible place to live, an exciting place to live, that now it was kind of sad and getting dilapidated. So I was really happy that I got to be part of this building that was built in 1880 by Alfred Reed, who was the founder of Reedsport, the now a little bit more major town just to the south of Gardner. So while I was working on the house, I was always honored. I was thinking, it's like I'm working on a museum and I get full range to do whatever I want. I'm so happy to get the honor and privilege of being able to do this, because why should I, But it really gave me the bug for trying to revive old dying out towns, because it's so much fun, and it's fun to see the residents get into the act as well. And so that place was a major seaport, but the trade shifted from going on wagon routes to supply places to the railroad, and then finally to I-5 and trucking. So the towns, if the railroad passed them by, then they'd die out. But then later on, if I-5 passed them by, then they'd die out. So it was transportation, which was mainly the culprit in the Pacific Northwest. And what are some of the small towns that we've noticed have died out in the Midwest in our area?
So in the Midwest, there's small towns pretty much everywhere dying out. Us being new out here, whenever we're traveling somewhere, anytime I see a little town off to the side of the main highway, I always want to turn off and drive through and just look at it. And there are some little towns that are still quite thriving and fun and full of shops and restaurants, but a good portion of them are dying. And some towns, there's just nothing left. There's just the downtown brick buildings are still there, but they're completely empty. And then other towns, it's kind of half and half. There's a few businesses going, but a lot of empty spaces. So us currently living in north central Kansas, some of the towns we've seen, one town that, the first town we lived in, that was Smith Center, Kansas, used to be a thriving town of over 15,000 people. And how many is there today there?
Now there's 1,500.
1,500 people.
And
so
there's also opportunities that were missed by other little towns. Like, tell the people, won't you, about what happened in Beloit.
Yeah, but first I want to say that going from 15,000 down to 1,500, I can tell you as a former school teacher that is about a 10 times
or
loss.
90% loss. There you go, math.
Yay, math. Yeah, so we were also informed that Beloit. Are you referring to the school?
Yes.
Yeah, we were told by a local resident in the city of Beloit, Kansas, that the town has made some poor decisions as well. One of which is turning down Kansas State University. So they decided, no, we don't want that here. And as you know, Kansas State University now is a huge, thriving university. And Manhattan, as a result, is a huge, thriving town. Manhattan, Kansas, that is, where it ended up locating. Smith Center is still going. It's one of those towns that's about half and half. I think it's about half empty storefronts and half businesses. Some of the businesses do seem to be doing well. And
Chris and
Raquel,
yeah, they're doing a great job.
Yeah, they're doing a good job of buying old buildings and fixing them up and then leasing them to businesses to run. So, yeah, shout out to them. And it's neat to see because they have a beautiful, beautiful downtown there. They have an iconic on the side of Stort's Auctions, and Stort's is an awesome place. Sad that they'll be retiring soon. But Stort's Auction has an iconic mural on the side of their building that has the state of Kansas, and then it says Smith Center, heart of the nation still beating strong. I think I got that pretty close. And that's just a neat place to go and take pictures and whatnot. And we actually lived briefly right downtown Smith Center, which was fun. We lived in a commercial building and were able to kind of enjoy that live. We lived right next to the movie theater, which was fun.
Yeah, they gave us bags of free popcorn.
Yeah, sometimes at the end of the night they would just give us whatever was left.
Another way we gained a lot of weight while living out here.
But yeah, and then there's towns like Esbon, Portis, Red Cloud, Nebraska. Those are some towns just that we're really familiar with. And then also there's what was it called? Gaylord, and then south there was Cedar, Kansas.
Yeah, and Cortland too. It has one really fun antique shop, but most of the buildings are kind of empty.
Yeah, there's and then there was a thriving restaurant looking thing there, but yeah, Cortland. just towns that you could tell that in their heyday were just awesome places. Lots of people coming and going probably, and but now just mainly dying out. And so we wanted to talk a little about. We had to do some research into why they die out here versus the Northwest. It's more of a transportation. It's also an industry thing there too. In the Pacific Northwest, a lot of times the towns were logging based, and then when logging would get shut down for various reasons, then the town would just kind of die out.
Right.
But what are some of the things we've found out here in the Midwest as to why the towns are kind of dying out a lot of times?
Well, like you said, industry. Here, the industry has changed so much because technology has shifted so quickly, and there used to be a community of a lot of small farms, and then they would support the towns because everybody would need to come in and get supplies. But now the little towns don't have so much of the small farms. Now you can't make a living unless you are farming like thousands of acres, or if you have like hundreds of head of livestock. You can't really make a living nowadays. And the little farms that start to go out of business, the corporations like Monsanto, Del Monte, the big guys out there just kind of like gobble them up, and so it's kind of like turning into more of a monopoly situation where before it used to be these small little farms. And when you run all these small operations, what do you need to run all these small operations?
Tractors probably.
Or people.
Yeah, it used to be people.
Yeah.
Now it's tractors, and that was also a big thing. These farms used to require dozens and dozens of workers to handle all these operations, and then as tractor technology came in, we were interested to find out that there's tractors now that are operated by GPS, and
that's crazy.
And they're insanely precise. They can just cut those rows, probably more precise than a driver can in different cases. But so these tractors can harvest so much and do so much, and seed, and they can do it all. So each tractor would replace dozens of men that used to have jobs, and now they're not needed anymore. So
right.
That's kind of a big contributor, is just technology and machinery that have replaced jobs. So people have to leave and go to the big city to get jobs.
Right. And so there's so many changes that cause the depletion of the farms, and therefore the little towns around rural Midwest. But there was also things that didn't change that needed to change for population growth. So what are some of the things that didn't change?
Yeah, so these are kind of our theories and our,
which, they must be right.
But, as outsiders, sometimes an outsider can give you a unique perspective on what can be done to kind of help save things. Obviously our knowledge is quite limited of the Midwest, but just from what we've seen, there tends to be in a lot of the small towns, just from people we've talked to, there tends to be kind of an attitude that they don't want change, they don't want people coming in.
Right, and that's nothing to blame them for, because they see what happens in the larger cities.
Right.
And they have such strong communities out here. They don't want that to change. They don't want it to go into like gang warfare and all the things that you see in the drug use, all that. They don't want that in their small communities. So it's understandable.
Yeah, but they do somehow need people. I was talking to one gentleman, and I was saying when he heard about our channel and that we were kind of showcasing the Midwest, he was like, "Oh, we don't want too much of that because we don't want people coming here." And I looked at him and I said, "Your stores are dying out. There's nobody to shop at them. You need people to come here to save these towns."
Right.
And he didn't seem to grasp that concept. They don't want people to come in, but at the same time, their towns need people. You can't have a thriving town. And we've seen some towns that just completely turned into ghost towns that you'll see along the highway.
Yeah, I mean, they really want to preserve the old good way of life.
Yeah.
But, sometimes the harder that you squeeze, the more that you'll lose something. And you got to grow or die.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that the challenge for the towns would be, now we know they don't like a certain type of people that want to come in and kind of change their way of life. But so their challenge, I would say, is to figure out ways of attracting outside people that are of their similar mindset and the values
Right.
that they hold and whatnot. I think there would have to be ways of doing that. And nowadays, with the whole, online job force, that's actually was a huge part of us coming to the Midwest. There was many reasons we chose the Midwest, but one of them was we wanted to. We actually our full focus right now is to make a living doing online stuff like this YouTube channel. So we discovered, if you can live anywhere, why not live in the Midwest where housing is still quite affordable? So if they can attract other people that also work in the online industry, and most of these towns actually have phenomenal internet connections, especially if you live in town. Now, we're currently living out on the prairie, so our internet is actually through an antenna, which is something I'd never heard of. It's a square antenna that points at the town, and so it can be a little slow at times. But if you live in town, most of the internet speeds, most of them have, or I don't know if most, but a lot of them have fiber optic and really fast internet. So I think as the world is kind of a changing place and more people are working online, it's an opportunity for these small towns to reach out and say, hey, you can have a small town, be part of this community, raise a family, still do your job, online.
So, what's another biggie that stops these towns from growing?
Oh, yeah, another big one, and I should have worn my special shirt that I designed.
Right.
So I have a shirt, for those that haven't seen it, that I made, and you can buy this in our merch shop. Click the link below. So Kansas has a really cool motto. Their motto is ad astra per aspera, which means...
It means to the stars through toil.
Yeah, I like that. I thought that was very inspiring. It's saying you can get to the stars, but you got to work for it, and I like that. But when we moved here, we've discovered that a lot of these smaller areas have really high taxes. And so I redesigned the Kansas logo, and I have a t-shirt with the outline of Kansas. This could probably be other Midwestern states, although I understand that some of them do better on taxes than our dear Kansas here. But so it says, ad astra per tributa, which means to the stars through taxes.
Yeah.
Because I think that the government here has kind of shifted to where they're like, oh no, we're losing people. We've lost all these, all these farm workers have moved out and stuff. How are we going to survive? We got to tax people more heavily. Because that works, right?
Yeah, I mean, when you tax something, you get more of it, right? Or is it just the opposite?
Yeah, and then we're interested to find out, and I'm not sure if this is, I think this isn't so much a thing on the West Coast. It probably exists to some extent, but here it's dramatic. Like the taxes vary from county to county, and it can be a huge difference. When we relocated to Mitchell County, our property taxes were dramatically lower, and I just thought, the state kind of sets the bar. I know that counties can charge different amounts, and it's like this in the Northwest, but I'm not aware that it can vary so drastically. And if I'm wrong, let me know in the comments below. But anyway, in Kansas, like going from one county to the other, your taxes, especially property taxes, can be significantly lower or higher.
Yeah, and we often get the explanation to this is because there's so little people. That's why the taxes have to be higher, because less people are carrying the burden. But, again, if you want more something, tax it less.
Right.
You could get more people. So, we talked about like why there's not a lot of new businesses, but in the towns that do have half of their storefronts filled, what kind of businesses are there that do thrive?
Well, the number one business that you see out here is banks.
Right.
Oh, and that's amazing. Like in our little town of Smith Center, population 1,500, I would say half of the storefronts were either banks or insurance companies. So insurance is another big one.
And
I think a lot of the farmers
they need that. Like every
yeah.
farmer needs the insurance because if their crop fails,
Right.
or biggie, if the market prices drop, then
Yeah.
they're insured against that, so they don't have to go under every season.
Yeah. But that was interesting to me that this town was like half of the town was banks and insurance agencies, which, hey, great businesses, you need them, but not fun for like tourism. Like tourists don't want to be like, hey, let's stop in this town and check out all the banks and insurance companies. You need shops. One type of shop we've discovered that seems to do well, there's, no matter how small the Midwest town, they have at least one florist. And Smith Center, I think, had 3 or 4, maybe.
Right.
And often they'll double. They'll be as like a florist / gift shop. Sometimes they.
We like the florist / coffee shop.
Yeah.
The Twisted Petal. That was really
The
good.
Twisted Petal
Yeah.
in Smith Center. Great place to get a coffee and flowers.
And Orange Julius.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
Yep. So, florists seem to do well. And then occasionally, you'll find little antique or knick-knack shops in these towns.
Yeah, and we noticed, like, in different towns, they have an awful lot of hardware stores.
Yeah.
It's kind of a must, like a Dollar General.
Yeah, a lot of these towns are pretty far from the nearest large box store, like Lowe's or Menards. A lot of times it'll be an hour and a half drive to those. So that instead they just have several hardware stores, and they'll be pretty complete hardware stores, like mostly everything you need. Yeah, so that's kind of a neat thing. I mean, the prices might not be quite as good, but hey, if it'll save you an hour drive each way, it's worth it.
So with so many factors leading to a dwindling community, what attracted us to a little community? What are some of the things that would actually draw people to these little towns that are dying?
Well, for us, we were kind of looking for a lot of things. One, like I said, was real estate prices. Absolutely fabulous real estate prices. For us, it was just the adventure as well. It's seeing a whole new part of the country. And, every day we can venture out to a new place that we've never seen. And I've mentioned this before, but one neat thing about a lot of the Midwest being fairly flat is that the roads are all pretty much on grids. There's east-west roads, north-south roads. See, we're used to the Pacific Northwest where the roads go winding up through the mountains and down around. So often there's like one route, or maybe there's a second route you can take to get to your destination, but pretty much there's one route to anywhere you want to go. Whereas down here, if you're going to go to a city that's an hour away, there's probably 20 different routes you can go, and they're all pretty decent. They're all like, little highways, little back roads. They're pretty well maintained, so you can go, usually at least 55, 60 miles an hour. So that's fun, is whenever we go to, like, there's a town called Salina that's a kind of a big city that we go to often, and we've often taken different routes to get there, which is neat. So you're not bored with the same old route every time. You can see different things, see different farms.
There's so much to see out here.
Yeah, it's nice. So the adventure is pretty cool. What else?
So you mentioned before good internet, which can allow people to live anywhere. So it doesn't really matter that they're not going to be right next to the business that they work for. They can live anywhere. And the internet out here is not bad. I mean, we ran into internet that's not that great, but when we lived in Smith Center, it was lightning fast. It was really good.
Yeah, absolutely. And then another good thing is that they're very light on the business regulations. We actually, like I said, when we lived in downtown Smith Center, we had a small storefront on the front of our place. It was a residence in the back and up above, but it had a small storefront. And we went down to the Chamber of Commerce and said, we're thinking about setting up a little shop. Basically, we just wanted to get rid of our excess stuff. So we wanted to set up just like a secondhand shop to sell because we were downsizing. And we said, what do we need to do? Do we need to get this permit or that permit? And they said, nope, just open your doors and good luck to you. And we were just like, wow, like that's unbelievable. No paperwork to fill out, nothing. You could just open a business. And I'm sure that's not globally throughout the Midwest, but I'm sure that there are plenty of places that are like that. So that's pretty neat that anybody can just open up a business so simply and easily, and you don't have all these loops to jump through and whatnot.
Another appealing thing that drew us out here is the Christian community. We heard from Heart Choices that there are healthcare workers that will refer to them.
So Heart Choices is
tell
them what that is.
It's a center that does so much. It gives you support if you are under like a crisis pregnancy, and it also helps you if you are a mother or father or single parent. They'll provide parenting classes, and they'll provide through those classes you can earn these dollars that you can spend at their store to get all of your supplies like diapers, clothing, car seats, all this great stuff. So it's so much more than just a crisis pregnancy center, but it really supports the community throughout the whole time of their parenting. And so we've heard from Alice, the director there, that they'll sometimes get referrals from the healthcare industry, which is notorious for enforcing and trying to get young people to immediately have an abortion without thought to how that's going to affect the rest of their lives. But instead, here they send them to the pregnancy center, which will help support them and get them the care that they need, so they don't have to decide to do something that's gonna leave so many scars.
Yeah, and one thing she said that I thought was neat is a lot of times, and I know this is true from different places I've lived on the West Coast, like she said, the pressure is really high. A young 16-year-old girl might go in pregnant, and they'll say, oh, we got to schedule you right away for your abortion. And they pressure them to where they think like, oh, there's nothing I can do. I guess I have to do this. There's just so much pressure put on them. And she said the first thing they tell them is, whatever your decision is, you have some time. You don't have to decide today. You've got a couple weeks whether you are going to get an abortion or decide to keep the baby. So they take that pressure off of them immediately. So then that allows the woman to make an educated choice and to actually put more thought into what they're doing. Because like she said, abortion does traumatize many women for life. And so it's sad that a decision that can be so traumatic has to be like rushed into. So so what they do is they tell them, well, you don't have to make the decision today. We would like to present to you options for keeping the baby and different things that can do, such as adoption and different things. And they let them know that if they do want to keep the baby, that they're going to be there to support them. So it's not just like, oh, we just want you to have the baby and then you're on your own. No, it's like, we'll support you those first few years and until you kind of have a handle on things. So and that's just awesome that public employees out here, there's so many, it's such a big Christian community out here that Christians are placed in government offices, and they can help these young girls by steering them into a place where they care about them and want to support them instead of just pushing them to the nearest Planned Parenthood.
Right. And even so, they do value the young people an awful lot around here, and they do support also the elderly. There's a lot of vibrant senior centers out here, and we've noticed, just like we went to a Nazarene church and we brought along my mom, and we were thinking like, oh, people would give us the most attention, but when they saw her, they were like, oh, Patty, they were all gaga over her. And that's just the attitude out here. They really value the elderly and the young.
Yeah, and they live long out here too, apparently.
Yeah.
Because we constantly see they put these ads in the paper, like come celebrate so and so's 95th birthday, or we've even seen a few 100th birthday parties. And it's neat too that they invite the whole community to these big gatherings. They put it in the paper. Everyone's welcome to go. So
Right.
and so we just thought, wow, that seems like people just live a long time out here.
So we are here today to
Yes, we are.
reassure the small communities that are worried about overgrowth. We're here to reassure them reasons why that's not really a factor.
Yeah. Yeah, growth is actually what they need. So I think the challenge, like I said, is to find a way to attract the type of people they want. Instead of just shutting down and saying, we don't want any more people, saying, okay, we realize we need the people. Now, how do we go about getting the type of people that will be a good fit in our community?
And furthermore, there's not a lot. Even if there may be a demand for it, there is very few housing developments going on in rural communities. And most people, initially, they don't stray that far from home. And also, we found when we got here, we were wondering, well, it's a bit rough. Did we make a mistake? It does take a special person to give it a go in the Midwest. We're very happy that we did, but like sometimes when we'd come up against things that were unexpected, we were kind of wondering about our decision. But I'm very happy that we did give it a go. It's well worth it.
Yeah, great place to live, the Midwest. I highly recommend it. Come and give it a try.
Yeah.
If you're tired of living on the coasts, especially. And just the freedom out here. I say it over and over again. You can just feel the freedom. You can just feel it out here. That there's just, except, should I mention the scooter incident?
The biggest, okay, you may think, taxes. That was the big reason that they moved from their first place, or something really important. I guess freedom is really important to us, but like the biggest reason that we moved away is because they wouldn't let us ride our electric scooters around the town.
I don't know if I'd say that's the biggest reason, but
I think that got us to initially thinking, hey, this isn't the right spot for us.
It was a factor. Yeah, the local sheriff there pulled me over once when I was riding my electric scooter, which is kind of a shame because the town is so small that with an electric scooter you can get to anywhere within a couple of minutes. So it's just so convenient. You don't need to use your car. I used to run it to the grocery store. But then he pulled me over and said that in that town they didn't allow electric scooters on the streets. The weird thing is he said we could ride them on the sidewalks. So I thought that's
we could
pretty
mow
strange.
People over,
yeah.
But you don't want the cars to mow us over.
And this is also very strange because these towns, a lot of people drive golf carts, ATVs. They drive all sorts of vehicles in these towns because they're so little.
And bicycles.
But they didn't want our scooters. So when we were considering our move to down to Mitchell County, the first thing I did was I called the local sheriff and said, are there any ordinances against riding electric scooters in town? And he acted confused, like, what? Why would there be any ordinances? And I just said, well, hey, the town we're coming from doesn't want us riding our electric scooters. Just want to make sure that it's okay. And he was like, yeah, of course. Like, why couldn't you? And he actually said something like, yeah, just don't ride on the sidewalks. And I laughed and said, well, that's really funny because in the last town, they told us we could only ride them on the sidewalks. Anyway, so if you do want to come to the Midwest, just check out the local town, things that are important to you. Find out about those before you come because each town is kind of regulated differently. And that's kind of a neat thing about the Midwest. I know here in Kansas, there's I think there's like 130 counties, or just a huge. Each county is quite small, and it's nice because they give them local control. So each county kind of gets to make its own decisions. That was a big factor during the pandemic, is that they let each county kind of decide what was good for itself, instead of in Oregon, where we're from. Salem makes all the decisions for the whole state. They just say, this is how it's going to be. This is the mandate. And then the whole state has to comply. Of course, there's little pockets of resistance. But in Kansas, they leave it to the local county, which is a really smart thing, leaving the decisions locally. Locally, you're going to know what your county needs versus somebody in a city, hours away from you.
Right.
So, yeah, that's pretty awesome.
All right, so now we've fixed dying towns.
we're the Charles Ingalls of dying towns. So, yeah, just wanted to give everybody something to think about. And if you are moving to the Midwest too, you might want to look into the local towns and see, are they promoting a policy of growth, or is it a dying out town? Because there's plenty of both. There's really plenty of both. There's some little towns that are just doing awesome. Shout out to Mount Carroll, Illinois. That was one of my favorite towns that we've been through. I thought that was an adorable little town. If you're ever in western Illinois along the Mississippi River, make sure you take a little detour and go through Mount Carroll. They have it's the most adorable little town. It's on kind of a hill. And they have ice cream shops and antique stores,
Most
and
important thing,
diners and delis, and just a neat little town up there. So anyway, hope you learned something new today. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you'll try some Sprecher lemonade or root beer.
Sorry.
And thanks for tuning in to the little podcast on the prairie. We'll see you next time. If you liked that, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Also, if you go to the description below, you can find a link to our online store where you can buy all kinds of fun corn-fed merchandise, like this one-of-a-kind t-shirt. Or if you want to go a step further and support us in our corn-fed endeavors, you can buy us an ear of corn or two by
going to patreon.com/cornfedlife, and for as little as $1 a month, you can help support some starving YouTubers.
Thanks for watching.